Hi, this is a demo of IBM's AI governance technology. AI governance is about three things: lifecycle governance, risk management, and regulatory compliance. And in this demo, we'll show how our technology helps address all three aspects. So the persona of interest for this demo is Beth, who is the CIO of CM Financial. And she wants to govern the AI models in her organization and ensure that they adhere to the best practices and regulation. So Beth starts off by looking at the AI governance dashboard. So in this dashboard, at the top left corner, she is able to see all the use cases for which AI models have been built. She notices that a bunch of the use cases are in proposed state and some of them are already approved, which means that they might be running in production. So Beth is happy about it. But she notices that three of them are awaiting approval. So what happens in financial companies is that before an AI model is deployed into production, the model risk management team does a thorough validation of these models. And that is what seems to be happening over here. So she decides to dig further and she is able to see the list of use cases which are pending approval. One of these use cases is about prediction of movement of interest rates. This is an important model and Beth wants to expedite the approval process of this. So she asks her team to follow up on this. That being taken care of, she goes back to the dashboard and she notices that there is a chart in the middle which shows the rate of adoption of AI across different divisions in her enterprise. And she's okay with this. But the thing that she absolutely loves about IBM's AI governance technology is that it is vendor neutral. What it means is that irrespective of what technology is used for building and deploying models, she is able to govern all of these models in a uniform manner. So in her organization, if you look at the right hand side, there is a division that is using IBM's Watson Studio for building and deploying models. There is yet another division which is using SageMaker from Amazon, and there is a third division from Data Robot, and she is able to govern them in a consistent manner. So what IBM's AI governance technology does is that it supports computation of different kinds of metrics such as fairness, drift, quality, explainability. And this is supported at each stage of the model lifecycle, right from the model development time to its validation during in pre-production to the stage when it is deployed into production. So she's able to go to the single dashboard and get a complete understanding of every stage of the model lifecycle and how her organization is doing in terms of AI. So this is the first aspect of AI governance, which is lifecycle governance. And she's able to achieve this using IBM's AI governance technology. Now let's focus our attention on the second problem that Beth has, which is that she wants to make sure that all the AI models in her organization are adhering to the best practices that she and her team have defined. So this is about risk management, which is the second aspect of AI governance. So IBM's AI governance technology has a very powerful and flexible workflow capability. And using this capability, she is able to automate the manual best practices that have been defined. So let's look at one such use case, which is to decide whether an AI model should be built for solving a specific business problem. So what this workflow states is that the model owner needs to go and define the details of the use case for which an AI model is requested. Once this information is given, a notification is sent to the approver who will look at that use case and decide whether this should be approved or rejected. And if it is approved, should a statistical model be built or an AI model should be built, and so on and so forth. So this workflow is completely customizable. So basically, depending on the use case and the best practices that have been defined for a specific organization, it could look totally different. So let's look at this use case actually in action. So let's say that I am a model owner and I want a model to be built. So I will go in here and provide details of my request. I'll give it a name. I'll define the purpose. I'll define the description and anything else. So the good thing about our technology is that this UI is completely customizable without writing a single line of code. So if an organization has a requirement that the use case should have a drop down which says that what is the risk level of this, or what is the domain for which it is applicable, all of that can be completely customized. So according to this workflow, what it states is that the model owner first needs to provide all the details, which they have done. So they will go and save it, and then they can submit this for approval. So the model owner goes and submits it for approval. And according to the workflow, a notification is sent to the model approver, which would have happened. And then the approver will go and look at this UI and look at the request and then make a decision whether a model should be built for that or not. So they can approve or reject or request additional information. So all of these actions, all of this information is controlled by this workflow. And by using this, Beth is able to automate the manual and error prone best practices that have been defined in our organization. So that's one aspect of regulatory compliance. There are other risk management best practices that Beth has defined. So in our organization, any kind of use case can be categorized into one of three categories: low risk, medium risk, or high risk. And high risk use cases are things such as hiring or credit lending. So for high risk use cases, Beth needs to be extra careful. And in this dashboard, she is able to see that she indeed has 4 high risk use cases. And one important point to note over here, that the dashboard that we are seeing over here is again completely customizable. So if an organization wants to create different kinds of charts, all of that can be done. They can move these things here, so they can create their own charts depending on the requirements that they have. So coming back to Beth, she has a bunch of high risk use cases, and she notices that some of the high risk use cases have alerts generated in production. So she immediately asks her team to investigate. So John from her team is tasked with investigating what is happening with the high risk use case. Now, John is a technical user, so he needs a more finer level detailed information on what is happening. So he goes to the model inventory and he knows that the use case for which an alert is generated is a high risk. So he quickly filters out the high risk use cases and he sees that for 2 of these use cases, an alert has been generated. So he decides to explore further. So he looks into the loan processing use case, and in this UI, he is able to see everything that is happening with this use case and model. So he notices that where the model was built, in what project, where was it deployed, how was it evaluated, who approved it, and once it is running in production, it has an alert generated. So he decides to dig further. So he clicks on it and he's shown all the facts that we have collected from the model in production. So he notices that the model has good quality. There is no alert has been generated for this. It has good fairness as well, but it is experiencing drift because there is an exclamation mark over here. So what exactly is drift? So this is a loan processing use case, and the model is deciding whether a person who applied for a loan should be approved that loan or not. So let's say that when the model was trained, it was trained on loan amounts up to $1 million. So what the model has learned is that if the loan amount is less than $1 million, under what situation should the loan be approved and under what situation should the loan be denied. And in production, it could happen that the model is getting loan applications more than $1 million. And when that happens, it could make incorrect decisions, can be a cause for concern. So John decides to investigate further. He is shown, when he digs deeper, he's shown a time series of the drift that the model has encountered in production over the last 7 days. And over here, this red line is the threshold. And he notices that the drift is not significant, but recently there has been an increase in drift. And that is not a good thing. So that needs to be addressed. So he goes back to the dashboard and he scrolls down and he notices that a new version of the model is being created. So the magic that is happening over here is that the data scientist could be using SageMaker for building the model. But all that they need to do is they need to invoke one API call, and IBM's AI governance technology automatically captures everything that the data scientist is doing and pushes it to the central location in the form of a fact sheet. So we have captured everything about the training information, what parameters are used, and a bunch of other things. But from the description, John understands that this is a new version being created to address the drift issue that the model encountered in production. So what this tells John is that IBM's AI governance technology has been continuously monitoring the model in production. It generated an alert when the model encountered a drift, and his team was notified, and they immediately started working on it and built a new version of the model. So he goes back to Beth and says that there was a drift, but it's under control and his team is acting on it. So this way, Beth is assured that all the best practices that she has defined in her organization are automated using workflows, and there are alerts generated, there is continuous monitoring happening. So this assures her that the risk management best practices are being enforced by IBM's AI governance technology. Now let's look at the third aspect of AI governance, which is regulatory compliance. So there is a new regulation that is coming up. I mean, there are multiple regulations coming across the world, but there is a new one that is being proposed in Europe around AI ethics. And the fines on this for violation of this regulation are humongous. I mean, the minimum fine is 30 million euros or 6% of the revenue of the company. So Beth wants to be ahead and she wants to understand how her organization is doing in terms of adhering to this regulation. So she asks her team to build a dashboard for her, which will help her understand the compliance status. So her team goes and builds a dashboard, and they focus on one aspect of this regulation, which states that AI models should be built using good quality governed data. So IBM has Watson Knowledge Catalog, and what it does is that it generates a data quality report by profiling the data. So if you notice at the top left corner, it generates a quality score. So if data scientists are using governed data, it will automatically be captured by fact sheet, and that information will be available in the fact sheet for Beth to look at. So this dashboard that her team has built shows her that a lot of models in her organization are non-compliant. And that is because for many of the models, it's not clear whether the data scientist has used governed data because there is no data quality information. So when John and her team investigate this, they realize that many of the data scientists are not using governed data. They are using data that they had on a common machine or some other place, because of which this leads to a violation of the regulation. Now, the good part is this is a problem that can be easily fixed using IBM's technology. So Beth's team have defined a workflow which decides whether a model should be sent for validation. So in this case, this workflow is checking whether what is the threshold, what is the accuracy of the data of the model, what is the fairness of the model, but is not making a check on the quality of the training data used for building the model. So this can be easily fixed by adding a step in here to check the quality of the training data. And by doing so, it will address the data quality issue that Beth and her team are facing. So this way, Beth can very easily first monitor the regulation compliance and fixed issues to make sure that all the AI models and in our organization are adhering to the regulation. So we saw three things in this demo. We saw how IBM's AI governance technology can govern the end-to-end life cycle. We saw how we can automate and enforce the risk management best practices. And third and very important one is that how can we make sure that we adhere to all the regulations. Thank you.